Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the tour van is there. The guys will go give this a go, see if they can find something a little bit more improved.
Certainly, yeah. And on the tours, a lot of that is then trying to find something. I think there's what you tend to see is when you can tell when someone's comfortable with it because it just sticks. Yeah. You know, Rory's driver setup just stuck until Stealth 2 came in and he's fiddling around with it. He's relatively settled back in again. You know, Brooks's setup hasn't really changed, shaft-wise hasn't really changed. Tiger rarely changes his. You know, it's only if they're looking for something extra or a shaft model disappears. Sometimes even a shaft or grip model disappears, and they actually make sure they buy up loads of them so they've got stock of them should they want to continue using them. But the Tour Pros they're always looking for. They might be looking for sort of a little bit of extra confidence in a particular week. If the swing's off a little bit, it's to change something. And so those who are struggling will keep changing. But if you get someone who's winning and working well, unless they're paid 100 million over 10 years and have to go to the new model, they won't do it. They won't change if it works.
And so when you get good players come in and you're fitting them, what are the go-tos that you'll ask them as a player with the driver of what they're looking to change? What are the go-tos normally of the first few questions you might ask a good player with his driver?
Yeah, I think somebody's looking at what they're working on with the swing, because technique-wise, I'm going to get mine just to help display it a little bit.
Sure. We're back online.
Welcome back everyone on the PG stream.
With both.
I think part of it's going to be, if you're working on technique, then angle of attack and how you deliver it affects, if you're changing that in particular, can affect dynamic loft a lot. So, case in point, if you get a player who's, working on, let's say for example has been, out to in, off a little of a fade, out to in, trapping it a little bit, it's a squeezing it, de-lofting, it's a lower launch, fading shot, so 1.9 down, so not massive, but just under 9 launch, I've necked it a bit as well, so it's got huge spin, but high spin. That as the path's quite exaggerated because it's me messing around with it, but that set of swing dynamics requires you're going to have to go to something. You're not going to get high launch and low spin because someone's squeezing it a bit. So if you get a player who can shift their dynamics as well, and that's something else that when you're going through the process and you're looking at what they're presenting you on the day, if they're working on something, go, okay, well, exaggerate it a little bit to see how much they can shift it. Because if someone go, right, 2 degrees down, 11 across, and they go, right, and if hit up on it 4 degrees, all of a sudden you've got a totally different shot you're fitting for. And you've got to look at the launch angles and the spins and the head styles and fit forward for them to kind of help them. Sometimes you can help someone with their change based on where they're able to shift it to and what kind of launch angles. So
I think the contact, Jimmy, you alluded to it there. I mean, get the glove back on. Hit one out the heel and hit one out the toe.
I've been quite good at hitting out the heel recently.
Yeah, I mean, we've got two really interesting audiences here. Obviously from my side of my channel, it's more coaching based. From your side, it's obviously very based on fitting side. But I think for both parties, seeing how influential the spin rate. I mean, you've just whopped that one out the heel. You're 3,300 reps.
Which is a good 3-wood spin.
Yeah, which is a good 3-wood spin.
Very inefficient for the driver and for that angle of attack. You look in there and go, that's a rotter of a strike.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think people don't appreciate that as a good player. When you hit them out the heel, you immediately know it's gone nowhere. Yeah. Because the spin's up. Even if it's gone straight, it doesn't matter. It's nowhere. Because it's going nowhere.
And reason being, it's the slowest part of the club. It gets the most deflection, most twisting, most distortion off centre, and the way that the ball gears up the face, adds spin, goes literally nowhere.
Yeah.
So that's the Healy one. I'll try and put similar angle of attack dynamics on it and catch it a little more toe side. Oh, that's so far out the toe.
so all of a sudden
you've got rotten ball speed.
Yeah, but you've lost 1,000 revs.
With a very open face. Yeah. So I've gone. It's exact. I've basically. I don't know whether this will even show, just to kind of show how. It's got it as an iron, but you can see based on that roughly where I have actually hit that.
It's gone two very different
disgusting.
strike points on the driver from heel to toe, and
Yeah.
we've gone from the heel strike at 3.3 to toe strike at 2.3.
But 3.3 with a square face. So square face at
Absolute-
impact.
Yeah,
And a rotten weak heely strike, and that went 255.
yeah,
And a rotten toe strike with a very open face that should add spin and take ball speed off. Yet it's a good spin rate and it's gone 20 yards further.
yes, yeah. So I think we can't, with driver, it's so difficult if people aren't aware of where they're striking it in the face, heel or toe. From a deflection and bend profile on a shot.
Yeah.
Guys and girls can hit a shot with a super open face and whop it out the toe, and they'll get some form of straighter shot or draw shot.
Yeah.
And vice versa. If they're a draw bias golfer with their dynamics and they're hitting it out the heel, all of a sudden they can see a fade come up where their golf swing would have delivered the draw. From a fitting perspective, that's really difficult because when you talked about what are you doing with your golf swing? Are you trying to improve your golf swing? Well, yes, I am. I'm trying to work towards the toe, and someone's standing there smoking them out the heel. It's
But if it's a consistent pattern, you can work with it.
100%.
You can say, right, we know where it's going to go. So, if that's a toe strike, if I actually find one's fairly centered, what you might actually, so a toe strike takes spin off, can make it a very efficient. So actually someone who's a little bit across and a little open on the face, but his strike is out the toe, can give a very straight, stupidly efficient shot that sometimes out the middle of the face you can't actually beat. So if I can actually find vaguely middle of the face, hopefully, on this. Maybe slightly low, slightly neck. Yeah, so a little low, little heel. I'm feeling a little ropey with the timing today, but ball speed's up.
Yeah.
But again, because I've missed it in the wrong place on the head, a weak spot, I've got 6-7 miles an hour ball speed, but it's gone 2 yards less.
Yeah, yeah. So strike is a premium. We've got some questions coming in. I mean, it sounds like we need to get a whole new tech side of the business here for James. So we've got Cornish Maid. Hi guys, with regards to the Project X Even Flow Riptide CB50 shafts, what's the actual difference between the regular and the stiff, as they are both the same weight and virtually the same torque? Very good question by the sounds of it, which you look like you've smuggled.
Not a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not a lot. The answer is it's slightly firmer. So in terms of how shafts are measured in terms of stiffness, most give it like a CPM value, and that is
cycles per minute.
Cycles per minute, yeah. So it's where a shaft's clamped at the grip end, as a mass goes on the tip, it's oscillated, and then the oscillation speed's measured. So you'll see a 250, 260 cycles per minute. And the answer is about 8 to 10 cycles per minute. Now, in the grand scheme of things,
in shaft flex differential.
Yeah. And so normally you'd get a slight upkick in weight, but in this instance it's a gram or so, it's basically the same. So what you have is a shaft that's, all it's going to do, it's going to feel very slightly stiffer. That's literally it. Right. You might lose 50 revs on spin. But in reality, if you think 10 cycles per minute, if we're going the upper end of thing, you can say 12 or 13, out of 250, 240, 250, it's 2 or 3%. It's nothing. What it is, it's just going to feel a little bit stiffer, and if that feels more comfortable, if you prefer a slightly firmer feel, you'll commit to the swing a little bit more. If it makes it feel too firm, you'll feel like you've got to hit at it and it won't be as comfortable. But most of the time, if you can ignore feel and just swing through, the regular and stiff will play pretty much identically.
Yeah, interesting. So we've got a question coming from Niels Axelson. My friend is stubbornly refusing to learn to hit up, so hits 1 to 2 degrees down on a short tee. White Tower, any driver adjustments I can suggest to make his flight more stable? It's an epic speed. I think there's probably more mileage in giving him some drills on how to hit up, but we can talk about that in a second, because I think that's something that probably everyone would like to know.
Yeah, well, there's a technically from an equipment side of things, it's one of those things that it's that chicken egg thing. If you tease it low, you're going to hit down it, because you've got to hit down it to get it out the middle of the face. So it just, one thing exacerbates the other. Probably just tee it higher and try not to hit out the top of the face, because that'll naturally shallow them out. But driver adjustments, if you turn the loft down, then you've got to launch it a bit more.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to come out with no flight. But either the head style is going to suit a trappy action or it's not, and it is quite binary in that it's good, bad in terms of that respect. So probably if you can de-loft it as much as possible, he's got to launch it more to get it in the air, and he might surreptitiously get him to hit up on it more.
Oh, interesting. I mean, just a point on attack angle. When I did a video on this on my channel. I mean, that's had over 11,000 views, and talking about tee height, because often, you see people teeing it down to create, more angle of attack. Have we got a high tee here? Actually, we've got a pinky or something. Perfect. Perfect, lovely. Look. It never used to be, but when did pink castle tees come in? I mean,
the most played tee in golf. That's the Pro V1 of tees. No. Everyone who comes and says, "Oh, what tee height?" Oh, it's one of those pink castle ones.
Yeah, I mean,
Personally, I use the white one.
With the white castle.
Yeah.
Are you a castle guy?
No, but it's the equivalent to that height.
Right. I can't.
It's wooden tee all the way for me.
I can't. Yeah, wooden tee. I mean, you get through packs of them. It used to be you could use a wooden tee for about 30 rounds of golf. Now you get one tee shot. I mean, it's obviously my mammoth clubhead speed that's doing it.
Either that or you're trapping it, because that normally breaks.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, I mean, so I think with driver, everybody's trying to hit it a long way, right? And so at the top, you're pulling on the golf club, whether you like it or not. You may be thinking that you're not pulling it, but let me tell you, that golf club from up at the top down to the golf ball, the only thing that's making it move is the butt and your hands. So you can turn all you like, but you are definitely pulling the golf club. Now, depending on how much you pull it, because you're thinking about how far you're trying to hit it, the harder you pull it, if you keep pulling because you're trying to make it go a long way, you'll invariably pull the butt past the golf ball, and then the golf club will swing when your body starts to slow down and the head weight can catch up and swing. So if you're pulling the golf club past the golf ball, there is absolutely no chance that that club can do anything other than strike down. Now, if you do make this kind of orientation on a high tee, the high tee won't change this orientation. All it will make you do is then sit back to then hit up. Now, if I now start to do the same thing from that line and I sit back, you can actually see how the face goes even more to the right. So understanding how the club head needs to actually swing past us through strike. And a lot of people, when they talk about swinging the club head, they immediately think about rolling the face over.
That's what most people think when you say release. It's
you roll it over,
rotation.
Yeah. You're actually just trying to make the pivot point. Yeah. Trying to make the pivot point of the butt, allow the head weight to swing past it, and something that we talk about all the time with the fitting process of the weight of the club. That's what you're playing
use
with.
Use the weight.
Because if the thing's too light, you'll unload it quick. If the thing's too heavy, it'll get stuck behind and be out of sequence. So this attack angle, if you keep pulling with the driver, you'll hit more down. If you start to feel like you can start to stall the handle out and the head swings, you'll strike up. It won't be anything to do with tee height. It will certainly help you, but it could also make the ball go more offline. So just be cautious with whopping the tee height up and feeling that that's going to make you hit it more up. It could actually orientate your body differently to make you hit it more offline.
And it is also one where I would say that some players are naturally high and low tee. So I've never used high tees. I've always almost brushed the grass on the way through. But I hit up in it by a couple of degrees.
Absolutely.
You don't have to have a planning permission on a golf course to be able to hit up on it. You can hit up on it and have a very, very low tee. It's not a case of you must be a pink or a orange castle tee in order to get angle of attack positive. You can still be off the white tee and still get a positive angle of attack.
Do go over and check out that video on my Intelligent Golf Performance video. And while you're here watching this fantastic stream on both channels, do give us a like, do give us a share and subscribe while you're here, because this is only getting better from my friends. James has already got the What Hi-Fi magazine out, finding out what bit of tech to bring us for more bits of kit. So Niels is going to try and trick him with your.
I think that's the best way.
With your D-loft.
Just challenge him so you just can't do it.
Yeah. Because
it can be, actually, there is one serious bit of that. There could be something physiological as well. If one of the elements to be able to get that clearance and rotation and up angle of attack is if you don't have decent mobility, then actually people get being able to get that rotation and clearance. If you can't get that separation to open the hips up, rotate around, and then the left shoulder comes up whilst keeping shoulders squarer, if you're locked out here from being sat at a desk all day, like most people are, then everything goes together, you're going to hit down and across it more. So that's another element that it might physically be something that they find hard to do.
But trick him anyway.
With Mark, great question. I'll grab a couple of options for you in one moment. I'm going to go quickly back to Stu, who asked a question about the Diamana shafts, TB, GT and PD, just before it crashed, and then Preston answered it and I answered it. But essentially they aren't all blue boards. The TB is a blue board. The PD is a whiteboard profile. The GT sits somewhere in between. So they are designed around different bend profiles and different flight profiles. So TB, blue board profile, mid-launch, mid-spin, very smooth feel, really kind of smooth loading shaft, but the standard blue board profile. PD is a whiteboard profile, so stiffer tip. It's not as tip heavy as old whiteboard profiles, much more evenly balanced, but that's a more stable tip and designed for a heavier load and a lower launch. GT sits in the middle. It's a stiffer handle, but more. It's a halfway house with it. It's actually based on the old ZF profile, which Justin Thomas uses. But the GT is a much firmer feel because the handle's stiffer. So that's the way they sort of, from a profile point of view, differ. And then Mark Allison, when I saw that exogrid word pop up, and I thought, wow, that takes me back. The Hybrex hybrid shaft that Harrington used.
Just before you answer that, let's just give the viewers that watch this. I have a Nakashima hybrid and the Hybrex exogrid shaft. Any shaft that compares to this shaft that Harrington used to win the Open Championship, old golfer, 100 swing speed and with a driver. Yeah,
100 swing speeds.
It's good.
Pretty solid. Yeah, it's pretty good. Especially if you are really an old golfer, then that's pretty impressive. But so the exogrid, the Hybrex shaft was a graphite core, but it had like a almost a semi-see-through kind of woven metallic outer layer. So it's almost like it's a hybrid graphite steely kind of composite-y kind of setup. So very, very stable, pretty heavy, 9,500 grams. Was almost like an iron shaft in a hybrid kind of feel. So I'm going to grab a couple just because it'll be easier to grab a couple and show you what they are.
For those of you that haven't seen the setup here at PG, we'll just swing you around. Here are the shaft options that Simon's going through. This is the rig that James has got kicking around. All very cool.
So a couple of these are materially going to be very similar, and one is just a similar high-grade material at a similar kind of weight. So structurally, the most similar ones are going to be I was going to call it. I was going to call it Autoflex, but it very clearly isn't.
Steel fibre.
Aerotech. Oh, mine got completely blank there. Aerotech steel fibre. They do it in 95, 110, 80, 85 grams, 75 grams. But the concept of this is graphite core and then God knows how many miles of steel filament wrapped around the outside. So a similar kind of concept.
How many miles?
Miles. Something like 50 miles or so, yeah. So very fine steel fibres, hence the name, wrapped around the outside. The principle being that you're moving the centre of gravity out, to the outer part of the shaft, which then stops it opening, gives it more forgiveness, more stability. So that's certainly one option. The other one, in a proper kind of composite, is the Nippon, the Ghost graphite on steel technology. So sort of the other way around, graphite core, steel core, graphite on the outside. So which camera do you have this one? So you've got the steel fibre here. I don't know how close, whether I can get this close enough, whether you can actually see the kind of the lines and the filaments within the shaft, a little further away. May or may not see it, but lots of wraps of fibre around, and then this one's the Nippon, the Ghost. So this one is steel core, but with graphite out on the outside, so the other way around. So the stability out of the steel underneath, and that tends to be very good, driving iron or like an iron player, wanting an iron-like feel in a hybrid. These are around the 9,500 gram mark. Very, very stable. And then there's an all graphite option as an alternative. You've got something like the Ventus Black They're doing a 95, 105 gram weight, so as an all graphite option, that's not going to be dissimilar. However, probably the closest one, I think the nip on the Ghost is probably going to be the closest one to it. But the one thing you are going to find with it, any dual material shaft, well, the Ghost isn't cheap. The steel fibre is much better option. It's an iron shaft, so because of the volume they're making, that's actually quite a good price point option as well.
Give us, when you say isn't cheap,
so if we're reshafting, then steel fibre and you're built, gripped, installed, you're going to be looking at sort of 80, 90 pounds.
For the shaft installed.
Built into it, yeah. And the reason I'll always give a built price is because we're not supplying a shaft. It's got to be, if it's going to be built and warranted and all that, it's got to be installed into a club rather than a grip, a shaft.
Gotcha.
It's a complete package.
Yes, of course.
The nip on the Ghost, I have to double check this, but I'm pretty certain this is around the 160 mark, so quite a bit dearer. And then the Ventus, again, similar, about 180.
Okay, so
yeah,
steep.
So for hybrid shafts, pretty punchy.
Really?
Yeah, because generally speaking, hybrid shafts were sort of 80 to 150. But then if you're going into something like the Ghost, that construction, and the Ventus, the quality of materials and things, that's then pushed it up. Wood shafts are anything from 80, 90 pounds up to, I mean, you can go crazy on them, but 350, 400, and then you get the ones that go to 600, 800. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And the differential between an 800 shaft and a 200 pound shaft, what are you seeing? Just
grade of material. I mean,
gotcha.
it's all they've got left. I mean, one of the Victor Afarbele, who owns VA Composites, I've said it before, I think, on these, it's a 46-inch tube, ultimately. However, you can only make it bend certain ways, you can only make it torque resist certain ways, you can only put the kick point in so many places. So the way they can keep improving, keep moving the product forward is going finer layers of graphite, composite. So thinner layers means more feel. You get more graphite versus resin component, and then to get it stable, it doesn't have to feel dead. So you can actually do more with it. But
so it can,
it's just
so it
greater
can
material.
feel soft but stable.
Yeah, and you're not having just to load it up and go heavy to get that stability.
Yeah.
So you can reduce torque by having lots of layers, but not have it feel dead and planky. So the old Grapholite Blue that you and I remember was a 65 gram, but absolutely it had no feel.
No.
Whereas now you can get 65 gram shafts that have as much torsional stability and will keep the club head as stable through impact, but you get much more feedback through them. And then the consistency, because there's many more layers, makes it more consistent from a product, from a roundness and a material consistency point of view as well.
That's the thing that surprised me with my clubs that I got fitted. They're far heavier, far stiffer than I've played before, but yet they still feel like they've got oddly, and I don't know why I hope this doesn't sound silly, but it still feels like you've got a lot of flex in them. They feel like
I think, so some of it is the better the fit, the player's able to put, the more connected you are. If you're working everything through in one go, then you're using the ground. You're more balanced, so you're more stable here. So all that force is going through the club. Whereas if it's out of sync, it's hands and arms snatching, saving, you've got 5% of your muscle mass rather than your whole core routing through the back of it. So actually you're loading the shaft more efficiently. So you're going to get a little bit more feedback from that shaft. And that might be to some players' liking, and other players might like a tighter, stiffer feel. And that's where you can play around with the bend profiles to get as good a balance of performance and a shaft. So the question about the two even flow shafts earlier, what's the difference in the regular and stiff? One player might just prefer and trust the stiffer feel, and another player might like and prefer and trust the softer feel a bit more. And so you're just going to time it and relax and enjoy using it more, and so swing better with it.
Yeah, and often you've got that's part of when you walk in and someone gives you a shaft, that chap knew there was such a small difference between the two. That could actually be counterproductive because you don't get an honest reflection of what you're feeling. Whereas the guy that goes, just give me another club shaft to try, just have a little try there. How does that one feel? To him, it could be polar opposites, but yet if you get down to brass tacks, it's 5 grams different.
No, and some players have much more sensation than others. So again, part of the whole fitting process, you're trying to dial into what feel does someone like, what feel does actually someone actually feel, and what do they interpret it as. So again, that's where, you know phrase I use loads over time, and these is everyone's got a different language for feel, whether it's how the club's swinging and moving from a technique point of view, and how the club is feeling to swing with. So got a friend of ours who's now working with TaylorMade, Ben Brooks, who's very high up at TaylorMade now. He's got a ridiculous amount of feel for weight and balance. He was an England hockey player, could feel a few grams in a hockey stick, which you're not meant to be able to do, but he's just got incredible touch and sensation to weight. And then I've worked with some pros who literally you can hand them something 15, 20 grams difference and they barely notice it. I can see a timing difference, but they're just not. That's just not the way they don't get their feedback from. It's just what does the ball do, not how does it feel to swing. So that's a really interesting challenge of each fit, much like a lesson.
We have Neil's on the remark before. Steel fibre apparently have more than 59 miles of steel fibre wound. There you go. That's a lot of steel fibre winding. Steel fibre winding. So where you're at with your, we did something a little while ago. Hitting your driver and hitting my driver with nuts and bolts the same swing speed, 110 miles an hour, and we've got 2 polarized driver setups. How often when someone comes in and has a fitting, do they shift the needle a long way? Because I feel like I was that guy, but I was someone that hadn't been fitted ever. So
do you mean by how much can they? In terms
the spec of a golf club. So you and I very different. Would you? And I went from something really quite light and soft.
Oh, in terms of what they've got.
Do you see people that haven't been fitted with us before? Would you can you see big variances?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, very much so. So there are times where, when people have been fitted before, if it's a good fit, then you can really struggle to beat their product. Well, perfect example was Peter, who's in earlier on. We're looking at his fairway woods, and he's one of the ugliest clubs, and he won't mind me saying it's one of the ugliest clubs that there's ever been made. It's one of the old Diablo fairway woods. It just works for him. Now we've been seeing Peter. It's got to be 15 years or so now.
A long time.
We finally got a club that actually it's worth changing out because it just works. And now sometimes you're going to get lucky, and you've got a club that you've just picked up randomly somewhere. Every dog can have his day. You can find something that just it clicks and it works really well. But you could also get instances where players will struggle with the club because it's just horribly badly set up for them. Whether it's shaft, weight, loft. If it's loft, you will adapt your swing to try and make the flight do what you want. And that's where, from a coach's point of view, you can make a big difference to someone's ability to do what you want them to do because the club can help them achieve it. So if they've got too much loft and they're getting over the top of it to try and bring the flight down, give them less loft, and then you naturally can help them create a better angle of attack because the loft of the club and what you want them to do with the swing start to complement one another. So it's a 1 + 1 = 3, and complete kind of one bashing heads the other way around.
So let's try a little experiment because let's get a 7-iron on the super light end of a setup, and a 7-iron on the super heavy end of the setup, and see what the differences are because we're always talking about weight, aren't we? We're always referencing how it can.
How light are you wanting to go?
Let's go silly light.
Complete.
Let's go uber light, uber heavy. And because I think we're always talking about the weight, and I don't think that people appreciate just how influential this is on the pull phase. Because when I'm the 2 things that, from a coaching perspective, that I believe are really difficult for golfers is getting the club moving and change of direction. because you're effectively moving that mass in an you're taking it from dead ball, aren't you? You're taking it from on the ground to away, and then you've got to take it up and move it back in the opposite direction, and how that weight transitions is ultimately what we're trying to deal with. Someone that has a very quick takeaway might benefit from a heavier golf club because it might slow them down, or equally it might be better that it's lighter. Yeah. But you don't know until
you don't need to try.
And that's the point.
And that's what fitting is. You've got to go there with. You've got to find too light and too heavy to know what the middle ground is. So a lot of it's a bit like the Goldilocks of the points. This one's too hot, this one's too cold. That's just right.
Yes.
You've got to see what too much and too little is, to know to see where the parameters are. So actually, very quickly, I can answer this one very quickly. Connor Knight, what's the time frame for iron wear out before deterioration of performance? Playoff 1, I have a set of 7/16 Titleist CB AP2 combos. Most faces have wear marks. So it's going to be, time for it depends how many balls you hit and what kind of turf you hit. If you practice off sandy turf, they're going to wear a damn sight quicker. But ultimately, it's in how the grooves wear. So you might get a wear mark, a darker mark on the face, but the grooves underneath it, that's just the chrome wearing. The grooves underneath it might be absolutely fine. The key thing to look at is when you're looking at the grooves, it's the top edge. So if the top edge still has an edge to it, then you're okay. If it started to round off, that's when you're going to start to see problems. As those top edges wear off, and normally it's when someone practices with one particular club or two particular clubs loads, you get basically the grooves start to spread as the top rounds off and you lose that definition. Then it doesn't bite into the back of the ball, then it doesn't get rid of the moisture, and then out of a bit of dew on a fairway you're going to get flat. Right, and then they're completely done. Yeah. But that's the key thing to look for.
Well, so where are we at with this club? So this is.
So we've got a T100. Just
okay.
I thought we'd go familiar.
Yeah, that's
and we've got this shaft Acra, the I Series. There's a sort of cosmetic update coming, but I Series 50. So it is like a 52, 53 gram shaft. Okay. And we could go lighter, but it's light enough. And I've decided to go for the X7, which is 138 grams.
Oh my gosh! So we've
did say go extreme.
Right. Okay. Love it. So we've gone from 52 grams to 138. 38. Yeah. Well, go on then. You tee us off. Let's see how. Have you? Where do you think this is going to go for you?
If I just swing and don't react to it and just move.
And that's the problem, right? Good players, one swing and you could be back in there and start.
What happens is you'll find all players will try to stay balanced. So if I just swing it, I'm not going to practice. If I just swing it, what should happen if I just keep going with the swing is I'll overpower the weight and it'll go left.
Right. Okay.
But I'm just going to move on this one. It. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Barely got the
I'm not
golf
trying
ball.
to do that as well.
Barely got the golf
path 1 degree from in to out. So what happens is if you go too light, as you put the power on, you just overpower that. So it's energy in the club, inertia in the club, and energy into the handle. If there's too much energy here, it goes on you. So if you keep going with it, round that face goes. And actually, that was a bit thin because the club doesn't pull you down into the ball. So you end up basically going whip that way.
Right. Let's have a go with that. That looked.
But as long as you just got to make yourself keep going with the swing.
That looked ghastly, by the way, Simon. Got to tell you.
Thank you. Yeah, it felt horrific as well.
It's going to take me watch off.
Went a long way. That ran out to 192.
Gosh, it feels like I've got nothing at the end of the golf club. Oh my goodness.
And that's the other bit it affects. As dead weight goes down, the swing weight drops, and so just the general.
Oh my God! It went away way too quickly. That's nuts.
But he'll like that, ladies and gents, because he hit it further.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, the biggest overriding sensation for me was it moving away from the golf ball because it felt like there was nothing there.
Gone. Yeah. So it's once it goes above your hands, it's gone, and so it just then gets a bit of a pickup. Yeah. And this can address the questions now. Connor, I might just get you to clarify when you say, is this what causes floaty ball flight? If you can just clarify what it is you mean, which bit causes the floaty ball flight, whether it's the grooves or then I can directly answer that. And then Mark, Alison, I play the steel fibre 110 regular, hard stepped, they're super stiff. The steel fibres do play stiffer to flex than steel because of the amount of material in them, so they do play very stable. In Nakashima NP2, I also have a set of JPX 921 forged with 95 steel fibre and struggle to time them. So this is relating into what we're looking at here. This is a weight thing. Timing is about weight. So shafts, and in terms of dead weight and balance point, are a tool that fitters use to help you find the middle of the club face and strike point regularly. That's what they do. That's their primary objective from me as a fitter, is I'm trying to get you to find the face and the ball contact consistently, and how it bends and how stiff it is and where the kick point is. There's very little in that importance, other than if you go to an auto flex or something that's soft, then you get lots of bowing and twisting of the shaft, and that causes strike point to go.
I think Connor said the floaty ones grooves. Yeah, I mean the soft rounded grooves are going to tend to knuckleball it, aren't they?
Well, rounded grooves, because they're not actually biting into the cover and pulling it down. Yes, they will pop it up. So particularly when you get to high loft, mid irons and longer irons, it's really about just getting dirt and moisture away from the contact point. When you get into pitch wedge 9-iron end, then what happens is that groove doesn't bite into the ball and pull it down, it will just pop. But it'll pop without much spin. So you can get that kind of
knuckle domey flight. And you'll see it, you hit it and it'll look up and it will look like it's just reached the top of its flight super quick. And then it just stays there. And it's staying there.
It's like something you play range balls with wedges, because the cover's that firm, it doesn't grip the face, so it just slips up the face and straight up there.
Well, let's go heavy. So we've gone we've gone 80 odd grams heavier. I feel worn out just thinking about it.
Almost 3 times the weight. Almost.
This is nuts.
This is so heavy. Why did I pick this one out?
Yeah, and I think the interesting point is that people talk about the flex all the time. Line share, it's regular stiff X, right? 3. And then we've gone 80 different grams.
But regular to X, in terms of the amount of actual flex difference it is less than 10% of the shaft. So if it was only flex changing and not weight, what difference is it? We're just going to feel stiffer or softer.
Yes.
It doesn't flip the toe over because the shafts don't work solely rotationally. It's in 3 dimensions, so there's a bit of a load and a bit underneath. You get a bit more flight out of a softer shaft, a bit. But actually, if it's purely the structural rigidity of the shaft and the stiffness changing, you're still only looking at 30 cycles on an iron shaft of about 320. So it's still only 10%, which isn't that much.
Whereas this is
300%. Whereas this is going to give me a hernia. So this is 20 grams heavier than I play with. So again, if I just move with it, this is like chaining it to the wall. As I fire, I won't have enough energy to get the club coming with me. So one of 2 things happens. One is, as you move through, that weight gets stuck. You've either got to stall out and flip it, or keep going and stand up out of it to keep so equal opposite forces. I've got to go that way to get the club going that way. So
I'm so excited for you to hit it. Can you hit it?
I might not catch the ball. I might catch the very large ball below the ball, but we'll see. So.
Wow.
Well, I actually struck it all right, but
Didn't strike it well.
Just, again, 1 degree path, but it's not pretty. Again.
Oh gosh, wow. Yeah, she's heavy, right? She's heavy. Oh, that's horrendous.
So what I see and you feel is body goes, and then it's a real kind of separation between body and club.
Look at the face to path values between the 2. Yours was 13, mine was 9 shut to path, and we both
with the 50 grams.
With the 50, and they're both weak and to the right compared to the to the heavy one.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I think that was we need to do more of this hitting and get the extremes. Yeah, we've got a question come in. Niels, we'll end the show on Niels' question. Weight of shafts. I was playing light graphite recoil 660 F3 shafts. The names on these clubs are just relentless, and we and was fit over KBS C-taper light stiff 110. Huge change, more stable and much longer.
I mean, you have gone from chalk to cheese. I mean, they are, so recoil, the 660s around a 60, the F3s I think a 67 gram shaft. Being a composite, they're a higher balance, they're designed for higher flight. And then the C-taper lights, 110, so straight away you got 45 grams extra. 45? Yeah. But very tip heavy. So designed around reinforced tip. Very, very stable at that bottom end, but I mean, you couldn't swing more differently. So thankfully, if it's a good change, it's better that, I mean, if it was the wrong change, then it would be horrific. But actually, you can go heavier and gain club speed because you can use the weight to develop your speed rather than having to, too light, you have to weave overpowered and go on left. You have to stall and back out of it to get control of it. So actually, sometimes heavier makes you more efficient. So if you're struggling a little bit currently, if the good ones are really good, but the drop-off's big, then they're probably right at the top end of your capability. And that's a marker there.
Super. Well, I've enjoyed this evening.
My back hasn't.
I know.
I'm not going to swing that again.
Listen, as we said earlier, if you have enjoyed our show and continue to enjoy it, do hit the like button, share and subscribe while you're here, because
and thanks for all the input. It's great.
It's brilliant. It's what makes the show. So tell your friends, keep the questions coming in, because we want to do a lot more of this, and hopefully we probably can't move around the studio, but we can certainly bring in props. We're going to do more with the guests, with the Zoom. James will be ordering up a computer the size of a bay.
More lights.
More lights. And we're going to get, hopefully we'll get Nick Doherty on next week. I'm doing a bit of Sky Sports this week on Thursday and Friday. It's going to be my first time on the show.
Tournament this week is
the Charles Schwab Challenge. Coverage starts at 9 p.m. So do check into the Sky Sports if you're around. We're going to be back next week. If you've got ideas of what you'd like us to cover, hit them up in the comments below. But big thanks to you.
Pleasure. There are two questions come in. I'll very quickly answer them. What graphite shaft is similar to Project X65? The answer is none, because you can't get a graphite shaft at that weight to play remotely the same from a balance and a feel. You might get closest with possibly the Axiom in the 125, but and Neil, yes, there were some answers that came through when the stream died. So hopefully we might have a recording of them somewhere. We've got a recording of them somewhere. James is nodding over there, and we will get that posted up so you can get some of those as well.
Super. Hit the like, share and subscribe, and we will see you next Monday.